Good morning and welcome to the Sports Debate Show. I'm your host, BA. Got James Martin and Jack Hirsch with me. First show of 2026. It is December 3rd. Hope you fellas are doing real good this morning. We have very good debate questions going on. We're going to start with the hottest debate topics because this is how we do it. First one today for the question. Would Lane Kiffin be justified to now insist that his assistant coaches no longer be involved with Ole Miss during their playoff run? I'm going to give that one to James because he's more associated with that.
Yeah, well, first of all, good morning to you guys and
Morning.
Happy New Year. I'm glad to be with you guys at the start of the new year. Hopefully, this is a great one for you all. Um, Lane Kiffin there's a lot to unpack in that question. He, for those of you viewers out there, if you're not into football or if you're hiding under a rock or anything like that, obviously you know Lane Kiffin was the coach of the Ole Miss Rebels, and he's had a tumultuous, kind of rocky career, and has had the best time I think of his career with Ole Miss. And this year, obviously, would have been the best time, but he just elected to leave and go leave Ole Miss for LSU and a conference rival, and he wanted to continue to coach his Ole Miss throughout the playoffs since they made the playoffs, and Ole Miss decided not to, rightfully so. I don't blame them for not doing that, and it looked like as a kind gesture. I don't know if that's with Lane Kiffin. Is that really a kind gesture, or just to keep his name in the mix in allowing his assistant coaches to go and coach Ole Miss throughout the playoffs? And I'm thinking, just like everybody else, that Ole Miss is probably going to be one and done. But here they are, headed to the semifinals. They won 2 games, and so that makes it very difficult for a coach like Lane Kiffin, who's trying to get everything together on his side at LSU and needing his coaches who are traveling back and forth to Baton Rouge to Mississippi to go and to coach these players continuously throughout the playoffs and get themselves ready throughout getting ready for spring, getting ready for the transfer portal, everything that comes with football that's during this time. I think that he should let his players stay, honestly, and continue to coach because he shouldn't have let them go in the first place. It's going to look really bad if he decides to pull them. But now I'm thinking, from what I gather right now, both Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin in his camp are going to split ways. So it's a strong possibility that his coaches will not be there when they play on the next game. Because from what I've been seeing, and to me, I disagree with that. I think that they should stay there because you put them there in the first place. Why? I don't think maybe weren't that the expectations weren't that they would win this far, probably for Lane's camp. And the other situation is that tampering is a big particular question here. It's whether or not they're trying to recruit players to come to LSU once they're done. Um, that's just a part of the game. They neither. I don't think Ole Miss should have accepted the coaches if they didn't want Lane Kiffin to come there. They should have accepted the coaches, and I don't think Lane Kiffin should have allowed his coaches to go there because of where we are now. I think that should have even happened, but since they're here, it's going to look bad on both parts, on both the team, on Ole Miss and on Lane Kiffin if they pull them. So I think that they should stay there. I think. Give me the question. Let me see. Would he be justified? No, I don't think he'd be justified. So I think it would look bad on his part and on Ole Miss's part if they allow these players to go. I mean, the coaches to leave.
Yeah, James, are you running for political office? Because you seem to be avoiding the question. You're bumbling around like I can't. I'm trying to make sense of what you're saying. I mean, you're kind of all over. You're here, you're there, you're everywhere. Yeah, you go yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. You're darting in and out. You're smoother than Terrence Crawford bouncing in and out. I mean, is Lane, but it seems to me that you feel that Lane Kiffin is not justified to pull his coaches back at this point. Am I correct? He's not
Correct.
justified. I'm going to say he is justified to pull his coaches back. I mean, Ole Miss isn't naive. You mean to tell me Ole Miss couldn't anticipate this situation happening before the playoffs with the transfer portal? You mean they were completely asleep at the switch, Ole Miss? That's incompetence if that's the case. Either that or they had no confidence at all that their team could advance, that Ole Miss themselves thought they'd be one and done. Are they in la la land? It's transfer portal time. Call Lane Kiffin vindictive all you want. Call him the biggest blankety blank all you want, but this is business. The transfer portal's coming up. He needs his coaches there. Everyone has their coaches there at this period. So should he be the only one who's not? I mean, he did offer to coach at Ole Miss. Had Lane Kiffin been coaching at Ole Miss through the playoffs, he would be there now. Obviously, he'd be doing double duty, doing his LSU, stuff in addition to Ole Miss, but his coaches would be at Ole Miss with him. So you mean to tell me Ole Miss is saying to Lane Kiffin, if you're going to LSU, you can't coach here through the playoffs, but they're accepting his assistance? There's something off here. His assistants are gone. So why are they accepting them but not Lane Kiffin? Okay.
So that to me, what you just said, you just fed into what I'm saying. If Lane Kiffin were coaching, would he have quit and walked away at this point in time because of what's going on? He wouldn't walk away. He'd be too vain for that. He'd be too vain to say, I'm going to continue coaching Ole Miss until we get to the end. If we get to the end, so be it. It's what it is. I won a championship with them, and now I'm gone. So why not let your coaches stay? If that's the case, why? There's no way Lane Kiffin would have left himself. So why are you going to pull your coaches away from the situation because they're still winning there? But I hear from what I hear again. Ole Miss doesn't want them there any longer because of the potential tampering, which is goofy. I think both parties are goofy right now for what they've done. But in the situation, you just can't pull away because it's going to look bad on Lane Kiffin and his program. And because LSU, if I'm LSU, I'm looking at you sideways. I mean, because why are you going to pull away now when you have the potential to actually win the championship? Because I mean, to be honest with you, they're in a situation to win only because of Lane Kiffin. All this is because of Lane Kiffin. So it makes him look good if they stay there and go all the way to the end. No matter, even if they don't get to the end, getting this far is just a testament to what he's built there. What he's built there. So I just think that no, there's no way you should allow those guys to leave.
Well, you can't go with a skeleton crew. You need assistant coaches at some point. This isn't baseball. You could lose every single coach in baseball, and the players could band together and make up a lineup, go to the bullpen, maybe not as effectively, but the team could conceivably win without a manager and coaches. In baseball, certain sports, even maybe basketball, you throw the right players out there, you can get by. Something about football, it's a little too complicated, even on the college level. But again, the question is, would Lane Kiffin be justified? You can't say he wouldn't be justified because it wasn't agreed upon beforehand with Lane Kiffin what the deal would be as the playoffs progressed. I mean, what was agreed? Nothing was agreed upon with him in Ole Miss once he left. I mean, was it even discussed? It is discussed in a way, but discussed with his coaches. Okay, what was going to be? was, did everyone just think, oh, we'll be out of here in 1 week with the playoffs. Lane Kiffin's going to look good because he allowed his coaches to coach there. He didn't bail out on Ole Miss, but it hasn't quite worked out that way. And you could say all you want, give Lane Kiffin credit if they won, they're winning with his team. But believe me, the narrative is going to be if Ole Miss goes all the way, we did it without Lane Kiffin. That's the mentality, right or wrong. I'm not saying that's the correct attitude to take. I'm just saying what the narrative is going to be. They're not going to be thinking, well, they so much won with Lane Kiffin as much as they're going to think we won it without him. I'm not saying that's the correct thing to think. I'm just saying that's what the narrative is going to be. And Lane Kiffin knows it. So he probably has mixed feelings. He could say all he wants. Oh, I'm rooting for Ole Miss to go all the way. They're my kids. A large part of them will be relieved if they get eliminated. It really will. He's not going to be upset if they get eliminated.
Well, I'll tell you this: if he did pull this assistant coaches right now, that would definitely be an a-hole move by him to do that during the playoffs, and they already got into the second round, basically. So, yeah, I wouldn't think he'd be justified. I don't think he would do that anyway. I mean, there's a lot of things that Lane Kiffin is, but I don't think he's that kind of a guy. I think he's going to keep him in there as long as he can. He's just going to have to work around it. That's all.
No, I think from what I understand that both are like almost mutually agreeing that they should go because
right now,
yes, because
that's cool.
Who's going to coach James? Who's going to coach for Ole Miss? Where they're getting assistance from?
I don't know. I don't know, but
yeah,
the next home game they're going to have people come out the stands and. Who wants to go?
Yeah, I mean, it's important in football. I mean, it's important. Coach is important in any sport. Don't misunderstand me. More important in football. I know I coached on the high school level, and I once had an opportunity to coach football, to go for the job interview, the whole thing. I didn't want to know from it. I wouldn't have been qualified to coach football. I would have been lost. Basketball, baseball, you can coach those sports. Even bowling, you get a book, you read up on it. Football, man, that's complicated.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure there are other guys like or other scouts or certain coordinators that passing game coordinators or whatnot that probably move up or in position to move up. But I don't know. I mean, I'm just telling you what from what I'm hearing is that Ole Miss is in the situation where the tampering is going on, and that's where their feelings are, is that they don't want this to go on any longer. But it's like you said, Jack. This is where you and I have to agree. I mean, they already knew this was going to happen when you allowed these coaches to come in anyway. You didn't think that was going to happen. You had to be blind to not think that. I mean, so
whose fault is that? Isn't that the Ole Miss administration? They allowed the assistants to come back. But then again, where you're going to get assistance because of just about the whole staff, you stripped of that. What you're supposed to do, call up the high schools in the area for the football coaches? I don't know what the answer is.
But there's no good answer because ultimately we have to look at Lane Kiffin and say all this is his fault because he elected to go. And not only did he elect to leave, obviously he elected to leave and go to interconference rival, and so it just makes the whole situation just like fall right into a big mess. And so
if you really want to put it into somebody's fault, it's the NCAA's fault because they don't have any these rules. This stuff has got to change. It really, all this coaching and all this moving around and transfer portal and that stuff's got to change. They got to do something. They got to come in there. Somebody's got to put a foot in there and say, "Hey, hold up a minute. Let's regulate this whole situation so we don't have these issues, in the coming years." And it's kind of like the same thing with the NFL and their coaching process. You're allowed to go and look for coaches before, even if your team is in the playoffs, which I think is, ignorant to me. I don't understand that whole situation. if they get to a point and they lose out of the playoffs, then go ahead and let them look for coaching gigs. If they, or until they get out the Super Bowl, whatever the case may be, but doing it during the playoffs is, again, the team is going to lose focus. You're not coaching, especially if you're getting a head coaching spot. You're not going to you're not going to give out your 100%. You're a human being. You already got a job. Why the heck would I want to, continue doing this one? You do it, but it's like a half-ass kind of thing that you're doing. So I mean, it's kind of, to me, the same way it's going to be in the NCAA. They got to do something about that. They have to make some kind of rules and regulations so we don't have any of this problem. And Lane Kiffin doesn't look like an ass, and neither does Ole Miss. So, yeah, I don't know.
But Lane Kiffin is entitled to leave. Any coach is entitled to leave, because if they weren't winning, coaches get fired in season. Look at James Franklin, a highly successful coach at Penn State. He got off to a terrible start this year, and he got fired. So why shouldn't coaches be allowed to leave if they're very successful? I don't want to hear, well, they're abandoning the school. Well, if they're not winning, the school's going to abandon them. Look at LSU.
Jack,
I mean, the reason
Jack,
he abandoned in the first place because they fired their coach.
I agree with you, Jack, in what you're saying there, but I also agree with Brian in regards to how things are playing out, meaning they're not following an NFL model. NFL has a great motto in how everything should be done in the off season, when the game is over. This is when transfer portal and national signing day should be done after the game is done. When you're done, you should have these things. That way, it makes it a lot easier that these guys can be working towards building their team after things are done, not during the season, not during playoffs when there's a problem. That's like you said, the NCAA is probably one of the major culprits here that should be culpable, because this is what's going on. I mean, because of everything that's transpired, it should be the NCAA's fault, because he's got to get in LSU ready. And Ole Miss, when they're done, they're going to have to get their team ready. But he's trying to do all that right now in the midst. That's why everything's a big mess right now. I'm going to go back and say that Lane Kiffin wouldn't be justified, because he elected to allow his coaches to go back there and coach. And so now, and to me, you need to finish a job. You need to finish the job. As hard as it may be, as difficult as it may be. And Ole Miss, as terrible as you don't like Lane Kiffin anymore, and as the situation, that he's going to pluck some of your players away from the team, there's nothing you can do about that. You elected to allow those coaches to come in. You both made decisions that could be detrimental for your current teams, but it is what it is.
Well, Lane Kiffin posted something of his coaches working late into the night. They're doing double duty. That's a way of working around it. The coaches have to be exhausted. That has to be crazy.
I'm pretty sure.
And believe me, when they show up for Ole Miss, it's as if, and they'll be relieved if Ole Miss loses the next game. If they are, allowed, working for Ole Miss, they'll say, okay, good, let's get it over with already. It doesn't help. It's a bad situation.
It's really gonna. What's going to hit the fan if they're not there come the day that they're supposed to play. Miami, right? They play Miami, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Like I said, it's the NCAA that's going to have to fix this issue. And Jack, you're right. They can leave if they, even if they're at a successful school. But it's the fallout that happens after that needs to be regulated, because I don't understand why they don't do all that stuff after the national championship. Why transfer portal doesn't open in, and then they can sign. Whatever the case may be, they need to do that after the last game of the college football season. You imagine those Ole Miss coaches, though? I mean, if they're doing double duty, and then after that, their job ain't going to be done. They got to do everything for LSU in the offseason. So they're not going to get any
And just one last word from me on the matter. Is anyone looking at the transcripts of these students? Aren't they supposed to be students taking classes, going this and that? What the heck is going on? I mean, they're just going to go to another school, and the credit's automatically going to transfer. That never even comes into the equation.
That should be another debate question as to whether or not football and school is even in a matter of importance.
Education, right?
Education, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So that should be a whole other debate question.
Well, it would be okay with me if my Jets, if the NFL had a transfer portal, a bunch of them, can take off. It's okay.
It's kind of, college teams are kind of like pro teams that have schools built into their stadium, basically. That's what it is. Okay, next question. The New England Patriots say they're supporting Stephon Diggs over what has recently transpired off field. Do you have a problem with that? Go ahead, Jack.
I have a big problem with it. Years ago, the Patriots drafted a player, Christian Peter. I forgot what round he was drafted in, nose tackle, pretty good player, actually. And he did have years in the NFL, but they found out right after drafting him, Robert Kraft, the owner, found out he committed certain things in college which weren't too good, put it that way. I don't remember the exact
1996.
Okay, and I don't remember yeah, go ahead, James, on that.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, it's funny you mentioned that. I looked that up, and it was his wife that didn't want him on there because it was violence against, I think it was domestic violence against women. And it was Myra Kraft that didn't want him. And this is where what spawned the Patriot way. And I mean, he was a fifth round draft pick.
Okay, yeah. I actually remember him playing at a charity basketball game that involved boxes, and I remember him kind of playfully slapping the kid around who was guarding him. No, not violently, we kind of showed that rough side of him a little. He didn't do anything illegal, that terrible, don't get me wrong. But I remember at the time Robert Kraft saying drafting him was a mistake. This is our policy. We're not going to draft players with a lack of character anymore. Case closed. We're not accepting this. And they cut him. They just flat out cut him from the team. And where I have a problem is not Stephon Diggs still being on the Patriots, not continuing to play. I have a problem with the word supporting him. Supporting him. That's what they said. I mean, if they used other words, okay, Stephon Diggs, is going to continue, to play for New England while this is being investigated. It's being investigated. They could find the right words, okay? But support means you stand behind the guy, what he did, or you believe in him. You believe him. You flat out believe him. And unless New England has evidence, the Patriots, that Stephon Diggs really is a bit of a victim here. For all we know, they do. They have some type of evidence that we're not privy to. The word supporting him, I find that highly distasteful. I do have a big problem with the word supporting someone or standing behind someone. I mean, if you want to talk about innocent until presumed otherwise, that it's being investigated and we're not going to condemn without evidence yet, I'm 100% behind that. But supporting a guy, unless you're sure that he deserves that support, and if we find out later that Stephon Diggs was at fault and New England said they supported the guy, I mean, that's bad to me. I do have a problem with it.
I mean, whether you say support or not, if you're allowing the player to continue to play, you're not suspending him, you're still supporting him. Whether you say it or not, if you have a problem with him saying the word, actions speak louder than words. If they're going to allow him to play, because obviously they need him, if they're going to allow him to continue to stay in the building because they want him to be a part of the system, as they go into the playoffs, you're still supporting him, whether you say it or not, Jack. You're still supporting him. And if the roles were reversed, if it turns out this person was lying, which there's some evidence of situations where people have just flat out just lied on players just because they wanted to get what they wanted, which is a monetary, the system is rigged. When I say system, I mean legal system where people can go in and say you did this to me, and they find out that it didn't happen, but yet because some guys don't want to continue on with the situation, they'll pay money under the table to say like, look, let's just get rid of this. Lawyers advise them just to get rid of the situation because we're going to have a lengthy legal battle. It may still be more of a visual stain on you or the team, because even if you are found innocent, it's there. You know what I mean? Or the stigma or the ambiguity is going to always be there and question about whether or not you were guilty or not. And so it's a tough situation. And I'm not saying he's guilty, and nor am I saying he's innocent. Due process should be there and allow this person to go through, because there are situations, forget football, where guys have been blatantly lied on, people have been blatantly lied on, and where the system was just it was rigged against the player. I mean, against, not forget a player, people. I mean, we're talking about, forget as a black person, we're talking about back in the day, the Central Park Five or whatever those kids were. They were presumed guilty before they were, and it turns out they were innocent. It's just, you got to allow the system to work for itself first before. And so if you're going to say you support a person, and that to me, that depends on what type of person he's been in the building. He must have been astute. He must have been a person that's just been doing the right thing, the Patriot way, for them to say that. And so you can't just drop a person off and say that you're not going to support him, because ultimately you're saying if you don't support him, you're saying he's guilty. And if you figure it out, and you're not guilty, then come on back. It's just, how does a player look at you then? And like, okay, this is how you treat me, and it turns out I was innocent of it, all this stuff, and then now you want me to come back and play for you? It's a tough situation, because unfortunately, if there's a victim there, in the lady, yeah, you don't want to say you supporting the person, but at the end of the day, if he's going to be in the building, if he's going to play, if you don't say support, you're still supporting him. So I don't have a problem with them saying it at all. I think that
if you say you support someone, then you absolutely believe in their innocence. Look at the Duke lacrosse coach. While everyone was getting on the Duke players, presuming that they were guilty, you'd even see that, who's that woman attorney, Grace, what's her name, going on CNN, and she was vouching such hate against the Duke players, for supposedly raping the girl. And it turned out they were 100% innocent, but their coach, who said flat out, I support these kids, I know these kids, he gets fired. He gets fired from his job for supporting, okay? What's going to happen to the New England Patriot organization if Stephon Diggs, if it turns out that he is guilty and they said they support him? Nothing's going to happen at all. But you say, unless they have evidence, maybe they have evidence behind the scenes. And Stephon Diggs, let's be honest about it, I'll have to admit, is a bit of an easy mark right now because of his past, how he's acted in certain situations. A little incident early in the year with the picture taken of him, what went on at Buffalo, supposedly, tension with Josh Allen, working his way out of Minnesota. But, one might have nothing to do with the other. But I'm okay with New England standing behind him, until the case gets resolved, because they should stand behind him until it gets resolved. I don't want him cut, but saying they support him, support means you're on someone's side. That's what support means. I just don't like the term more than anything else.
And with that said, what you just said makes more sense, and I'll let B go. Maybe by them saying that they support him, there must be something that his attorney, there's either lack of evidence or just something that makes this an egregiously false claim, and okay, so then they've been shown that this is where this is at, and this is why I'm not guilty. So okay, so because like you said, it's a major organization, so they must have something there that allows them to support him. So it is what it is.
I don't think that's the case either way. I think the fact that it's a business thing. Um, I was reading the article when they did the press conference. Remember, also Christian Barmore, defensive lineman for New England, is also in the same situation with domestic battery, and he came out. He had to come out and defend both players. Well, not defend them, but understand the situation that's going on. And he basically summed up both the players with, yeah, we support their players because they're allegations. Those are allegations. When he says they're allegations, so we support them. But support doesn't always mean that if they get found out that they're guilty, both of them, of their crimes, then of course they're going to be, let go from the team, I would assume, because that's what Patriots usually do. But
they'll be let go after the playoffs.
well, I don't know how that's going to work. Well, none of the cases are going to be happening until after the playoffs anyway. Basically, I think January 24th is when Stephon Diggs has to be in court. I don't know the court date for Christian Barmore, but I think it's going to be after the playoffs at least. I don't know how long New England will last, but the point of the matter is, I think it's a business thing. And like to your point, James, they don't want to. They don't want to get the player to be thinking that, oh, well, you don't support me, and then I found out that you are innocent, and then they say, oh yeah, you come back. That would be ridiculous. I wouldn't go back if I was the player. I was like, oh, okay, well, you didn't stand behind me when and I told you I was innocent, blah blah blah. So it's a two-way street. It cuts like a knife sometimes. So you got to make sure that you do what's best for your team at that moment. And I think that's what Vrabel did. He just said, it's allegations. He filed allegations by we support these, because of these allegations, we will support our players. But there's kind of a but if you're guilty, see you later. So, yeah, I think it's just a two-way street for that situation. I don't really think the support is as heartfelt as you're making it, Jack, because, again, it's a business thing, and they don't want to alienate their players in this situation. So, yeah, I'm not – yeah. Morning, Richard. All right. Next question. Does Eli Manning deserve to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame sometime in the next few years? We'll give it back to you, Jack, on that one.
Yeah, I mean, he absolutely does. Maybe not this year, because you can't induct him ahead of Drew Brees. You can't induct him ahead of Larry Fitzgerald. I get all that. So when you have two slam dunk Hall of Famers, they go in ahead of Eli Manning. Is Eli Manning a slam dunk Hall of Famer? No. But slam dunk Hall of Famers are his brother Peyton, Tom Brady, John Elway, Dan Marino, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, even Ben Roethlisberger. Those guys are slam dunk Hall of Famers. Eli's not a slam dunk Hall of Famer, but he is a Hall of Famer. In the next few years, in one of the years, the class is not going to be so powerful where he can't get in. Now, we talk about quarterbacks managing games and winning games. I can't stand it when I hear the story, well, the Ravens won a Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer. Heck, they could have won that game with Zach Wilson. He could have carried him through the playoffs with that defense. And if I'm exaggerating with Zach Wilson, I'm not exaggerating by much, and I'm serious when I mean that. So don't give me the Trent Dilfer line. Eli Manning went out and he won both Super Bowl games. He took the Giants down the field in their last possessions. He won those games. Look at the last drive that you talk about the helmet catch, but he put the ball there and avoided the pass rush. And the second Super Bowl, that pass to Mario Manningham was sensational, and he took him down the field. And what about his Iron Man streak? 210 games? Think about that, 210 consecutive games he played in. Compare that to the current record. Josh Allen has been in 121 consecutive games. That's the longest streak in the NFL. Josh Allen has got a long way to go to catch the 210. Okay, I mean, he's got to play about 6+ seasons to catch up to Eli Manning on the Iron Man streak that he had. The argument against Eli Manning's this: regular season, his record is subpar. Well, you can't have it both ways. I could play, when Jerry Jones's Cowboys went 12-5 3 years in a row, no one gave a darn about it because they kept getting bumped in the playoffs. You got guys like James saying, get rid of Jerry as the GM because, he doesn't know what he's doing. So the regular season didn't mean anything to James. But if Eli Manning's going 500, guys like James are going to start pointing out, oh, no, with that type of record, how can you be a Hall of Famer? He won 2 Super Bowls, 2-time Super Bowl MVP, Iron Man streak. His coach, Tom Coughlin, loved him. He was a real leader there. Players rallied around him. And right now, of all the retired athletes in New York, at least, he's arguably the most popular one because of what he did. A giant through and through. Not as good as Peyton Manning, his brother, but who gives a darn? Definitely a Hall of Famer at some point in the next few years. Not this year, perhaps, granted, because of Bruce Gerald. I'm fine with that. But in the next few years, how do you avoid making him a Hall of Famer?
So, mentioning the Iron Man streak, I mean, anybody could have those streaks and be considered like an Iron Man, but I mean, you could be a guy that plays subpar and an average. As long as you're in the game, you're considered an Iron Man. Fine, I'll give you that. And I'll give you, he had those moments in the playoffs. I will definitely give you that. I mean, he threw that, especially 2011. I mean, he was 1,200 yards. He had 9 TDs to 1 interception. He was legit. Too legit to quit. But during the regular seasons, man, I mean, you're right. I'm going to have to say he was average, an average quarterback, and I mean, streaky. I think he ended up with 60% at 60.3 completion percentage for his career. And he's the toast of New York. I guarantee you win Super Bowls, you're the man. He's got 2 on his belt. You can't take that away from him. But, man, I mean, it's going to take a few years to me, and it's not just because of the quarterback that you want to put in there. You mentioned Ben Roethlisberger. Yes, I think he's got to go in before him. Drew Brees. There's a couple other quarterbacks. I don't know if you mentioned or not. Obviously, Tom Brady will have to go ahead of him. And he's the Manning name that, okay, he almost had 2 more Super Bowls. He had 2 Super Bowls before his brother. Before Peyton, and Peyton had a knock on him for not winning the big games, and he finally got to the big game. Tom Brady and the Patriots were in their way. They finally got to the big game in 2007, but it's hard for me really to say it's just quarterbacks that need to go in ahead of him. There's other guys that you can look back that have stellar careers that are other players that are not minus the quarterback position. We're talking about wide receivers, Torrey Holt. We talk about Reggie Wayne, guys like that. I wouldn't put Frank Gore ahead of him, but there's guys like that probably needs to be in. I even go as far as to say that as a slot that needs to go in ahead of him. That's way back in Lester Hayes, even though he had the issue with the stickum. Lester Hayes was a standout cornerback and won 2 Super Bowls as a matter of fact, partly because of him. I really think a lot of guys, there's a lot of slots that need to be let in at some point. And to me, it's going to take a long time. Is he deserving of a Hall of Fame? Yes. I'm not going to take that away from him. I think he does, but I think it's going to take more than a few years. I think he's not a guy, like you said, not a slam dunk. But then at the same time, there's a lot of guys that weren't slam dunks that probably deserve to get their spot in ahead of him, because I just didn't see, like, again, it takes a team. That 07 team was mainly because of the defense. You said the helmet catch, fine, but the defense held the Patriot undefeated team to 14 points. So I just think mostly it was the defense that won that. Now the 2011, that was more him. He was clutch as I don't know what. I mean, it was an impressive Super Bowl win for them. That whole playoff run. But I just think that he had a lot of skewed numbers: 57,000 yards, 366 TDs to 244 interceptions is a bad ratio to me. 84.1 passer rating. He had his jersey retired to number 10, and he's in the Ring of Honor. That's great, but it's okay. I mean, to me, he had a couple of good runs, a couple of really good runs, and the teams had good runs. And he deserves the Hall of Fame, but it's just going to be a little bit further down the line. That's just my opinion.
Any rebuttal to that, Jack? No?
Actually, I had a helicopter just come by as you said something now. I think you were addressing me and I couldn't really hear it. I understand what you're saying there, but it's called Hall of Fame as well. And I can make the argument, just like I could say Patrick Ewing is the greatest New York Knicks in team history. I could say that Eli Manning is the greatest Giant quarterback in team history. Some people might say Bill Sims or go back to Charlie Connolly, etc. But I can make that argument. He did it in the toughest market as well. And the Giants never looked to draft a quarterback until the end of Eli's career. If they weren't completely happy with him, they would have maybe looked to address the quarterback situation. And they didn't do it until the very end of his career. And you do it with every quarterback towards the end of his career. So that doesn't really count in that sense. And I could say Joe Namath then doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. Look at his regular season record. Look at this, look at that. But Joe Willie's historical. One of the most historical names in NFL history. And that alone, should make him a Hall of Famer. But
you just mentioned Patrick Ewing. So now, as the greatest Nick. Now, mind you, you said the great, and then you mentioned Eli Manning is the greatest quarterback. No, compare apples to apples. Would you put him in the top 5 of greatest Giants? Eli Manning. I'll give you that. Can you name 5 Giants that are greater than Eli Manning? Giant players
who played their position a little better than Eli played his.
Yes, because you just mentioned, like you said,
I could make an argument that Tiki Barber was a little better running back than Eli was a quarterback. I could make that argument if I wanted to, per se. I mean, LT obviously is the gold standard, and then you look at guys like Harry Carson, etc. Am I going to go back to the day when Frank Gifford played and guys like that?
Because you just mentioned, you said
Joe Namath.
It's different, but in football it's different. You can't compare one position to the other.
That's not true. Because there's a top 100 players all together. I mean, there's a reason you're going to name.
But that's gimmick stuff. If I said to you who's a better player, Barry Sanders or Deion Sanders. Come on.
It's nuanced. It's slightly nuanced, but
different positions.
That's not true. Impact is everything. You can definitely see how a person impacts the game regardless of their position. So I get it.
Eli, the answer is yes, because Eli's position was more important than anyone else's position.
I don't think so. I mean, his position is, but did he play his position well enough to be in that top 5? That's the thing. That's the question I'm asking. And LT played linebacker. He played outside linebacker.
They changed that comparison. I could argue, well, T was better than Jerry Rice. Then I could rate him ahead of Jerry Rice.
You could argue that.
Jerry Rice was the, best receiver over the course of his career in NFL history.
You could argue that. There's so many. That's another debate question that we can have. I mean, I get it. My point is, the reason why I brought that up because you mentioned uh, Patrick Ewing as the greatest, arguably the greatest Nick. And so, and that there's different positions in basketball, is what I'm saying. And so I'm saying comparing apples to apples, you would have to compare Eli Manning at the same. And I could name probably 5 players that I would put ahead of Eli Manning, regardless of position, as a great
They're
Giant.
all Hall of Famers. They'll all be Hall of Famers, the 5 you're going to name. So,
Sam Huff.
yeah, Sam Huff, who later went to the Washington Redskins. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that was before the Super Bowl era.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. One could argue that the game was probably harder then, than it is now. So,
Sam
I mean,
reportedly was scared out of his wits of, Jim Brown, supposedly.
I mean, everybody probably was afraid of Jim Brown. So he was bigger than his offensive lineman. So, I mean, yeah, that's, again, neither here nor there. I think he's going to get in the Super Bowl. I mean, excuse me, in the Hall of Fame at some point. But I think it needs to be far down the line. There's just way too many guys that were good at their position that have been left out and hadn't been included yet. And so I just think he's not a slam dunk for me.
I got a comparison that you probably might even scoff at, and it's to a current player that plays. Jalen Hurts doesn't really have the greatest seasons, but when he gets in the playoffs into the Super Bowl, that dude plays, and he's won an MVP in one. He almost should have won an MVP in another one had he not thrown that pick six. He probably won the MVP in that one. Kind of reminds me of the same thing that Eli Manning did over his career. He wasn't the greatest quarterback. He was a leader, but he wasn't the greatest quarterback ever to play during a regular season. But when it came to the playoffs, he sparkled. And I think that's the same thing that Jalen Hurts is. So we might have this conversation about Jalen Hurts 10 years down the road.
Correct. If Jalen Hurts plays 6-7 more years and he's a starter for the Eagles, yeah, he'll be a Hall of Famer. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, by the way, Jack, Brett Favre has the most consecutive starts. 297.
No. I said Iron Man, what Eli had. I didn't say you had the record.
Oh.
Okay. I think he was second, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he is second. Yeah. Nobody's catching Brett Favre.
And he beat Brett Favre. He beat Brett Favre in the NFC Championship game in Green Bay, sub-0 degree weather. Eli actually,
that was one
Brett
on the
Favre.
run that run they went on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Brett Favre threw an interception to seal that game, didn't he? Yeah. He threw an interception and they sealed that game. All right. Next question, real quick here, between Draymond Green, DK Metcalf, and Anthony Edwards, whose recent conduct do you think is the worst? Go ahead, James.
Well, let's give context. Draymond Green and his coach on the sideline, as you know, Draymond can be controversial, but he got into not a scuffle, but a banter of words with the coach, and so that's not uncommon for him. It's not the newest thing. So that's what happened with him. In regards to DK Metcalf, if you're again sleeping under a rock, DK Metcalf with the fan walked over to a fan, got into a verbal discussion, a verbal altercation, and then hit the fan. And in regards to Anthony Edwards, if you again don't know for context, if you don't know what happened, he got benched, or the whole offensive or the team, the starters got benched with 8 minutes left, and he was scoring like 30 points, but they were down by like I think 30 or so points with 8 minutes left, and he walked away off the bench into the locker room and never to return. So for me, all those things are egregious. Everything that was done is just pretty much egregious. Draymond to me, it always seems to be a sign of disrespect, to whether it's to a player, to a coach, or to a ref. He just seems to be very disrespectful. DK Metcalf putting his hands on a fan is just out of line. You just can't do it. I don't care what someone's saying to you. And in regards to Anthony Edwards, that's one of the most immature things I've seen. That's to me, that's why they're not winning the way they should be, because there's some level of immaturity there. But of the three, I'm gonna go with DK Metcalf. There's just no way you can put your hand on somebody. I don't care if somebody calls you the N-word. If somebody calls you something, there's that old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. If it does hurt you, you got to figure out a way. You got to go sit down and talk to somebody or something, because someone's always going to say something to you, especially if they know that it can get under your skin. It's just what it is. Trust me, I've been called any and everything under the sun, and I've wanted to get into verbal spats and maybe physical if it need be, But as you're growing up, you got to mature and understand, man. You got too many things at stake. You almost had 45 million not guaranteed. I mean, you're lucky that your team said they're going to allow you to keep that. But they could have been detrimental to your livelihood, to your family's livelihood. And it still may be, because this is why I'm picking it, because you actually put your hand on somebody. Not only did it might affect your money, it affected your team. You're suspended. You're not being helpful in your team, and you're in a situation where you versus the Ravens, the Steelers versus the Ravens, is either win or go home. And them not having you is makes it a big possibility that you may not win. And not just that, later on, you just gave this guy money into his pocket. When you hit him, he just heard the cha-ching sound. He's gonna go to civil litigation to try to get money out of you, and he's probably gonna get it, just because there's visual evidence that shows that you hit him. So somebody walking off, I mean, in regards to Anthony Edwards walking off the court, that could be fixed without having to be fined, without having to lose. You come back. You and your coach figure it out. Even the coach said, he's got to stay and support his team, but they'll figure that out. Draymond Green, I listened to Steve Kerr he was on what's the guy's name? Tom Tolbert, a former Golden State player. He has a podcast, and they talked about it. And even Tom said, you and Draymond are the same same person when I played with you. And Kerr was like laughing because, yes, he's like, that's just us, man. And he said it was a misunderstanding because he thought I was telling him to stop fussing at the ref or whatever. But I'm mainly telling him to come get into the huddle because I took a timeout. We need to know what's going on. And so they said some things to each other and it just got out of hand. But he said it was just a misunderstanding. And so to me, the reason Draymond is still on the team is because he loves his fire. He loves his passion for the game. That's just who he is, especially at this point. That's why I didn't pick him number one. But DK Metcalf is my choice.
Yeah, with Draymond Green, we know what's going on, even the players. It doesn't undermine Steve Kerr in their eyes. They're like family. They've been through so much together. Him walking out doesn't make Steve Kerr look bad. It's what it is. They get past it. Draymond is Draymond. He was wrong what he did, even though Steve Kerr took some of the blame. And DK Metcalf, okay, he hurt his team more than the other guys hurt their team because he had to miss last week. They may have won the game had he been in the lineup, and then they would have won the division. He may have actually wind up costing his team winning the division, but he wasn't disrespecting his teammates. There's a difference involved. He had an incident. He wasn't undermining his teammates directly or showing them any lack of respect. Anthony Edwards was, absolutely. Who the heck does he think he is, where the coach wants to empty his bench with his team down 29 points with a little over 8 minutes to go to give the other guys, the reserves, a chance to get into a game? And because it's in Atlanta and he has his family down there, where he's already played virtually the whole game and got 30 points. As you said, he decides he's mad because his coach isn't giving him a chance to score 40. So he just leaves. You know, he disrespected his teammates who were getting in the game. Through you guys, I'm leaving. How dare you substitute me? Completely unacceptable what Anthony Edwards did. That's the worst of the three guys. DK Metcalf is the most damaging to his team, but he was, again, it was separate from the team in itself. He went off to the side. He dealt with the fan. It was awful. He wasn't disrespecting his teammates at the moment it happened. Anthony Edwards absolutely was unacceptable. The Timberwolves should come down extra hard on him. You leave the bench, at least suspend him one game and let him know what the deal is. Disgusted with Anthony Edwards' behavior.
Yeah, I mean Draymond Green. Yeah, I know Draymond Green. Steve Kerr dismissed him from that whole situation too. Told him to go back to the locker room. So that's kind of like that's Draymond. You say disrespect, but I don't really think he's disrespected because if that was the case, he wouldn't have done that. He understands. It's kind of like the son-father role kind of like thing going on with him and Kerr. So he told him to get off the court. He said, "Like, go take a timeout." He put him in timeout. So and he did. Draymond's like that anyway. That's just what kind of player he is. He's been like that ever since he's been in college. So that's just what you take what you get. DK Metcalf, for him to walk all the way to the fan to do what he did tells you right there the dude has no self-discipline. You need to have self-discipline. And yes, that's disrespectful to your team because what you did, you cost your team, your presence in 2 games. And 2 detrimental games too, because they should have beat Cleveland, but they couldn't beat Cleveland because they don't have their number 1 receiver out there. So I mean, you disrespected the team, in my opinion, just by doing that. And Anthony Edwards, that dude is just a man. He's got to get some help. That dude don't get any help, man. He's gonna be a quote. I don't mean to put it in the terms that's a violent term, but he's a loaded gun. Okay, that dude's gonna be. Somebody's got to settle his behind down sometime, and he's just being detrimental to his team. I don't know necessarily if he's carrying it off onto the off the field, but dude, you can't be doing that. You can't be doing that kind of stuff on a court. It is not pliable. You can't be doing that. Does anybody else have anything to input to this discussion?
No, not really. We have very little time left. I understand it's going to hurt the Steelers in all probability unless they beat the Ravens. It's going to hurt them more than it's going to hurt the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves, it's not going to cost them a game unless they suspend Anthony Edwards a game and they lose that game. And even if they do, it's just a regular season game amongst many. So, but Anthony Edwards is supposed to be a leader on that team. And if you're on that team and you're getting in the game and he's leaving because they're putting you in the game, how's that supposed to make you feel? You're on his team, I'm coming in the game, and he's having a hissy fit because I'm coming in the game and he's leaving. How are his teammates supposed to feel?
As you said, they have time to rectify that. In Pittsburgh, they don't have time at all. It's a situation where it's dire.
Situation. Yeah.
Well, it's different, but it's different. But the level of respect that he showed his teammates, what DK Metcalf did was worse. I understand that it was worse to interact because that could have a devastating effect. But I just felt the level of respect shown towards his teammates. Anthony Edwards, was very distasteful.
Yeah. On that note, thank you, Jack, for bringing us to the close there. On that note, we will be saying adieu to you. Michael, we got you, man. I got your question here. I'm going to copy it down so everybody can. Sorry we didn't get to it. Time limitations, but we will put that in here too. That's a very good question. Other than that, everybody have a great rest of your day. Join us tomorrow at 8 a.m. for the Big Football Show, at 8 a.m. on Monday morning for Keith and Jack on the Weekend Playbook, and at 7 o'clock p.m. for Jack and Frank on the Gloved Fist, and we'll have a special guest for you, Lee Grove, right? Lee Grove.
Lee Groves, boxing
Lee
writer, boxing historian.
writer,
He'll be on Monday night. Yeah.
So we will see you then. Again, everybody have a great weekend and Happy New Year.